Welcome to Brilliant But Lazy, Victims and Villains podcast. I'm Alan.
I'm Josh, and I'm ready to kick this off. Let's go.
Yes, we are burdened with glorious purpose to review season 2 of Loki.
Yes.
So we had teased this in our Marvels episode that we were going to do both in one episode, but we had a lot to talk about with the Marvels, so we decided to split it into two. So here's part 2. A few days later, hopefully, of that conversation. So without further ado,
we're recording this right after some of our New York Comic-Con stuff has just started dropping, and it made me remember that I had downloaded I had streamed the first episode of Loki on the way out to New York Comic-Con. Through the Disney Plus app, and that New York Comic-Con feels like a while ago, but that's kind of, this Loki was just kicking off then, and I remember watching that on the plane, and then that first night that I was out in New York.
Yeah, the season, what was it? 6 episodes?
It was 6 episodes. Yep.
Went by. I can never keep track of these Disney Plus shows because Marvel will be 6. Ahsoka was 8, so it's like always confusing for me. But yeah, this season went by fast, and we're gonna review it without spoilers at first, and then we're gonna get into spoilers with a clear spoiler warning, and we're gonna go until Josh's headphones die because he's wearing wireless headphones, and so we're gonna go until they die, and once they die. That's it.
I need to get wired headphones.
Yes.
Is basically what you're saying. Yeah, I should have learned after last time.
Yeah. Well, hopefully lightning strikes twice. I think the first thing I want to say about Loki season 2 is I was surprised by how fast it hit the ground running. I thought things that they revealed in like the 3rd episode or 2nd episode, we weren't going to get into the finale. And they were there in the beginning of the show. It was a very fast-paced show. It knew the story it wanted to tell, and it got there. It didn't waste much time. There was a weird McDonald's tie-in for some reason, but I thought it was a very tight, well-constructed story that was a great continuation of season 1. What did you think?
I might have told you this when I was in New York, but I didn't care for the first episode. Granted, I didn't realize the direction the show was going, and the more there was a change for me in this season. But if you had told me the purpose of this season just on paper at the beginning, I would have told you that sounds like they could have probably done that in one episode and not stretched it over the course of an entire season. And I would have kind of been annoyed by that because what is set up at the end of season 1 of Loki is not necessarily the focus of season 2 of Loki. And I'm not necessarily certain if that was always the plan or if that was influenced by current events with Jonathan Majors. Or I think most of this was filmed before a lot of that Jonathan Majors stuff came out. So I imagine it was. But I still did not realize that was the purpose of this season. And I'm not going to lie. I was kind of annoyed in the beginning. And then episode 2 was a little bit better, in my opinion. Episode 3 was a little bit better. And there were things that were starting to end those episodes that I was like, okay, I'm kind of, I'm a little more intrigued. And then the last 3 episodes, besides the fact that they were directed by Benson and Moorhead, who I had the pleasure of interviewing, and I think are great directors, and I love that they're being involved in more Marvel projects, because they were involved in what was the Egypt one?
Moon Knight.
Moon Knight. The last 3, especially the last 2, were extremely tight and emotional and supercharged. And at the end of it, I was like, man, I didn't think that this would have been a concept that they could stretch over 6 episodes, but it was fulfilling as hell by the end of it. So I'm probably in the minor folks that would say it was a rough start for me, but holy crap, they ended it super well. in my opinion.
No, I feel like I've heard it was a rough start for a few other people. It might have just been you several times, but no, I think this goes to show that when you have one writer with a plan for your a whole story arc of your show, because I think this whole show has been planned out since season one. I think it was the same writer, so I think they may not have had the details written out, but they knew where it was going. So I think having that plan from the get-go and fulfilling that plan and following through on it delivered one of the best Marvel TV shows that we've seen so far, if not the best.
Well, and looking at who the writer is, it's Michael Waldron, and I don't know how he dropped the ball with Thor: Love and Thunder, but his credits include things like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse, but more interestingly enough, Rick and Morty. And Rick and Morty can get kind of crazy. And so, I mean, for someone to be competent in that universe, and then, maybe he had his hands tied a little bit in previous iterations of his Marvel stuff. But I thought that as complicated as Loki got, it was really well made and well written. And that shined by the end. I mean, I was kind of in awe at how great it was at the end.
There's only so much that you can, like, when you look at something like Love and Thunder, where he's not listed as a writer for that, but he was listed as a writer for Multiverse of Madness.
Okay, maybe he was just a producer for that.
Yeah,
then?
Possibly.
He's connected to it on IMDb.
Let's take a look here. He was.
Oh, never mind. He's listed as additional crew, so who knows what that means.
They probably brought him in to try to fix it. It's such a tight story, and I feel like a lesser version of this would be a movie. Like, from start to finish, it's one complete story, which I find so refreshing. Like, I don't need a season 3 of this.
I don't either.
Yeah. I would love to see these characters in other places, and maybe we'll get that eventually. But right now, I am so satisfied with how the show went.
And that's what you hope, right? Not that you don't need a season 3 because you're done, but because they landed the ending. They landed it, it didn't stumble to the end. It didn't just, it was a well-finished ending, and it's like, just bask in it and enjoy it. Don't feel like you need to add an epilogue to something that you already nailed. Like, there wasn't even there wasn't even an after credits thing to be like, a tease. It was just like, no, man, clap, because it deserves your applause.
Which is something that Marvel rarely does, because there's always a post credit scene.
Right.
And I think the Loki show has been the outlier from all of the Marvel Disney Plus stuff, because it is the one with the most weight to it, because it's the one that's dealing directly with the multiverse. And has I feel like this has the biggest stakes of anything that we've seen in the MCU for the multiverse saga than any of the movies or the shows that we've seen so far. It's all kind of weighed on Loki. So
now, I can't really remember what my public thoughts were on the first season. I feel like I look back on it more fondly now, and I just said that about Captain Marvel, but I do remember enjoying parts of the first season, and especially, with characters like Owen Wilson in there and stuff like that, and Kang at the end. But I also remember thinking, man, this is just, Loki was one of the villains that has survived the onslaught of villain deaths, and why are we going out of our way to make him a good guy and to change him up? And I was thinking that maybe Loki would be a way to bring him back as a villain, because they took the Loki from Avengers, not the Loki from Infinity War, and I was
Hmm.
like, maybe this is gonna. And then I do believe I got irritated that the Loki from Avengers became so likable and so possible anti-hero as he was in Infinity War, because that Loki had been through so much and this Loki hadn't. And yeah, there was like the flashback scenes and the stuff that is it Mobius? Mobius? It's not Morpheus.
Mobius,
Mobius.
yeah.
That Mobius has shown him. But I do remember being a little irritated by the arc of Loki's character in the first season, and not sure if I really wanted to see more of that versus just more of Kang. And when I realized that season 2 was about a certain thing and not about this other certain thing as much, I was that's part of my thing in the beginning, was like, I don't know if I really want to sit through more of this. But I watched the 2 and 3 last week, and then I watched 4 through 6 today. And man, I remember sitting up on the couch at one point being like, oh, and then just being lasered eyed in to the end. And just, yeah, I appreciated what they did with the character and what they did with the story and the overall purpose of the show, and what it may or may not mean for all of this going forward.
Yeah.
And I really like that. And I also like that it wasn't. I was worried about how much would be tainted by whether or not Marvel chooses to move forward with King, and the we'll get more into that. But I was very happy with where we left things with
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I am too. Trying to think of things we can talk about non-spoilery. Ki Kwan joins the cast this season, and for a show that doesn't rely on guest stars and new cast members coming in, like his addition to the crew felt natural. He was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed Obi as a character. And that's
Yeah,
almost the biggest difference between this and season 2 is like him joining the cast. Everyone else is back, and
I agree. And I thought he was just going to be somebody that was in the first episode, and I was like, "Oh, good for him." He's having this comeback where everybody's just, like, "Hey, let's bring him on." And he's whether it's his public appearances at award shows, and everybody just giving him a standing ovation, to just his story in general from where he's been to where he is now. I was like, "Oh, that's cool. He got a nice little scene in the first episode of this show."
yeah,
And then no, they brought him back, and at first I was like, "Oh, don't spoil his character and give us too much of it." But then he kept on coming back, and it was clear he was a part of the cast now, and I was like, "Yes, all right, actually, I like
yeah,
him being a part of the cast and part of the show, and I appreciated it." Yeah.
yeah. And if I didn't like him being part of the show, we at least got the selfie of him and Harrison Ford behind the scenes at D23 because he was in Loki,
Mm-hmm.
so they were both
Mm-hmm.
there. So they got to have that reunion. Um, yeah, I don't have anything else spoiler free to say. Um, do you? Because a lot of
Um,
what I have to say is spoiler.
Everything's spoilers.
Yeah.
Everything's spoilers. I'm trying to think. Trying to think. Um. N- mm-mm. Mm-mm. I didn't think this. The show is 6 episodes. I feel like I they were. I just looked up the times, and I think I went away from that page, but they were all pretty good length. I didn't feel like any of them were incredibly short, or wasted. I felt like it was a very tight written season, and once it starts going, it really does just keep going, and it keeps the pace. And the closer you get to the end, the more things they throw at you. And yeah, I this was the show doesn't waste its time. This is what you want when you hear a series is going to be 6 episodes. This is what you hope for. That it's going
Yeah.
to be 6 strong episodes. But with the Marvel streaming shows, it doesn't matter what kind of links they give you, whether it's Marvel or Star Wars. I've been like, well, how much of that is going to be filler? How many of those episodes are barely going to be 22 minutes long? how many are going to be throwaway and disappoint us, and then we're going to have to wait another week for the other one.
Yeah.
This was they made great use of their time.
Yeah, they absolutely did. I feel like this show shows that they kind of like Disney Plus is kind of figuring out what they're doing with the shows. This is the gold standard for the Disney Plus shows. Like, yes. Mandalorian's doing its own thing on the Star Wars side of things, but for Marvel, like, this is what the show should shine for. And I think the closest we've gotten to this is Moon Knight, where it has the story, like it sticks to it. It has its own conclusion, and then you can pick it up again if you want, but you don't need to. Like, but I feel like everything else is just kind of
disappointed in Moon Knight.
Yeah.
I didn't think Moon Knight had a satisfying ending, and it had Oscar Isaac in it, and it had my boy, who's the villain,
Ethan Hawke.
Ethan Hawke, and I was like, how do you fuck? I thought that show was a missed opportunity in my mind.
Well, and I think it's the closest that we've gotten to something as good as Loki. Even Miss Marvel, I think, is on the right track with a completely different tone. But
one other spoiler-free thing I can say is Natalie Holt is the composer for this show. And I remember really liking the theme that she did for the first season. I can't really remember the soundtrack for the first season other than the theme. And I was like, that is a cool theme.
Yeah.
She built on that so much in season 2. And there were moments where the music was swelling. And I was like, oh my God, like, I want this on vinyl. This is a great score. And I had to look her up. And hats off. She was great. She's a great composer, and that was the strength of this season.
That was the other thing I was going to point out is they did some fun stuff with the music in this. Like the opening, like the Marvel opening was you never knew what they were going to do with it because they did some fun stuff with it. It's like let's go. Like episode 3, like I want that whole soundtrack, that episode, that whole score on vinyl.
Well, and then there'd be really sad moments or really just somber moments, and then a different beat would kick in, and I was like, is this a retro song that I just don't know what the beat is? But then that beat would morph into the theme, and I'd be like, oh my God, no, it's just another great part of the score. Like, yeah. I hope they release it because it really did make the show for me. That plus the visuals, and I did feel like the second half of the season was stronger than the first half, and Benson and Moorhead are so talented, and they just brought this visual flair and I think elevated the show to the point where I feel like the last 2 episodes were like movie quality, and it looked so clean, and it just I loved it. It was really good. That's as much as I can say. I'm just gonna say it. Ranking wise, this was very brilliant and not lazy at all. You can't get lazy with how intricate this show was. If you did, and this had all the potential to be a mess. And I'm not sure how it's going to be received with all the backlash and the stuff that Marvel is dealing with in the public eye. But holy crap, it was brilliant to me.
Same here. Absolutely brilliant across the board. That's all I can say. Absolutely brilliant. So on that note, I think we're going to get into spoilers. So if you've not seen season 2 of Loki, this is your spoiler warning. So here we go. Do you want to start us off with the spoilers?
Yeah, sure. So the mechanic that I was talking about, or the what I thought season 2 was going to be more Kang centric. I mean, that's the big thing in the finale of the and I thought this was going to be Loki trying to get people convinced that we need to fight Kang, and that this was going to be a Kang centric season. And while it started that way with him trying to say that it's not these 3 robot things, or it's not whatever you think it is, it's Kang. If you had told me that this whole show was about trying to fix the mechanic that makes the all the branches become the stream timeline, I would have been like, that just doesn't sound like a storyline that we need to stretch over an entire season.
Yeah.
It's breaking down consequences, and we got to figure out how to fix it. But can't we just do that in one episode and then get back to the main storyline? But that's what the whole season was. And it got to the point that Loki exhausted himself trying to fix it, and you're exhausted for him. And I think that's just what made the finale so much sweeter, is that it broke you down to that point. Not to the point that it was not enjoyable to watch, but I felt for everything Loki goes through in this season to get to that point, and then it turns into this, and I was just like, and Kang comes back into the picture, and Loki has to realize that everything he's suffered through, it actually doesn't matter, and this is the direction it needs to go. And I was just like, wow, I did not expect it to go there. It was such a satisfying turn of events.
Yeah. Like I said before, like I was very surprised at how fast King came into it and then was dropped out of it. I was surprised at how fast Sylvie was brought back into the fold, and then how fast we got to Victor Timely, because I thought that was the finale. I thought we were building to Victor Timely and seeing a Kang variant again. But that was the third episode, and then he's part of the team then as well. There were a lot of surprises, and I was satisfied by every single one of them and how they played out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All the characters in this season, I think, got a great amount of time. I really didn't care for Renslayer in the first season, and I was kind of hoping she wasn't involved in this, but she was, and I did like her as a force that was coming back. She was definitely more on the sidelines in this season with Miss Minutes, and I wondered, which movie did we get the Loki season 2 teaser in with
Ant-Man.
Okay, so ever since that, I wondered how much of that was going to be in this. And if this was just like a ruse and this wasn't Kang, or if at some point this, this version was going to turn into the Kang that we saw at the end. And I appreciated how much and how little they had of that in this season. It was just enough. Like it wasn't too much to where I was like, this isn't the Kang I want. I want something a little more formidable. But it was just enough to where we did get the Kang from season 1. It was that much more intriguing, so yeah, I think they used enough of that. Everything was just enough. It wasn't too much of one thing, and that just goes to the writing and to the crafting of the show.
The only thing I will say there was too much of is Owen Wilson trying to sell water skis, like jet skis. And the McDonald's tie-in was a bit much. Like, I don't understand the purpose of that. I don't know if it was just for funding it or what, but...
Yeah, and it was old school McDonald's, too.
Which was fun, but doesn't get me a Big Mac for 75 cents, so...
At first, the one guy that I was kind of annoyed with at the beginning was Brad Wolf, or whatever his designation is, played by... Raphael Kazel. At first, I was like, "Why is he here?" I thought he wasn't that great in the first episode, and then they kept bringing him back a little more, And I did like the argument that he did, at the end of season 1. You're like, screw the TVA and everything, and what they're doing, and let people live their lives and set them free, And he did. He was a hunter that went out and that made a life for himself. And then when they brought him back, he was like, who are you to tell me that I can't do this? Isn't this part of why you revolted in the beginning? And to see our characters be like, yeah, but that's not what you could, that's not helping, And the fact that just total freedom wasn't the answer, was interesting. And then the further along you Loki realizes that, like, you can't have it all this other way. As much as they were trying to make it work, it was just creating this infinity problem that was just going to make everything blow up no matter what. And him having to make a choice of what to do. And I just, I really didn't know where this was going to go. If he was going to become a villain at the end and just be like, Kang's right. If he was going to kill Sylvie in the end, or what. I didn't predict what the ending was. And I really liked that I didn't predict that's where it was going to go.
Yeah, they kind of, like, looking at the posters that they've released for the season, they kind of hint at where they're going with it, because you see Loki with the horns and the cape. And the assumption is, oh, that's just Loki from the first Thor movie. But if you look at him now, it's kind of like, oh, that's this other thing that they were kind of dangling in front of us this whole time, which I think is just clever marketing.
Sure.
The way, like, I had heard the things about the finale of this, that Marvel had effed themselves when it came to Jonathan Majors and Kang. Having watched the finale, I don't know if they went back and changed something with him that it wasn't in there, but after watching that finale, I was like, I don't know what that article was talking about, because I don't see, like, if they wanted to, at this point, they could have anyone play Kang, or no, like, just not ever address Kang again.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering and what I was saying. It doesn't make sense that this wasn't always the storyline, because it definitely feels so tight that it was. If they did go back and cut some stuff out of the finale, they did it so clean, because the finale didn't feel like it had holes in it. It didn't feel like half of something that was made and then they had to cut things out because of X, Y, and Z. It felt solid. And that's why I was so kind of like shocked, because it really kind of, it didn't kill off Kang. It didn't write him off, but it definitely didn't feel like this is the stepping stone to the next big, I almost said Thrawn, the next big Thanos.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like that at the end. It felt like, oh, this is how they handled this problem, and this is how Loki took ownership of this situation. And if we never see Kang again, other than the tie-in with Ant-Man, he could just be the Loki guy. It kind of seemed like, oh yeah, we're tracking his variants, but we're not very concerned. And, yeah, it could continue, but if it didn't feel like this sets up this. Didn't feel like this set up the Kang dynasty, and now you can't watch this show because it's setting up something that might not happen. It felt totally different than I expected.
Yeah, absolutely. And there have been rumors about what happens in Kang Dynasty, and then what Kang Dynasty sets up for Secret Wars floating around the internet. And being the Marvel correspondent for Victims and Villains, I've had people reach out to me like, hey, are these true? I was like, I don't know, but I hope so. But nothing in here makes me say like, oh yeah, that's definitely where they're going with this. Because Kang is still such an unknown entity at this point. I think the only person in the main sacred timeline, or Earth 616 as they call it in this, is Ant-Man. Like, he's still the only one who's aware that Kang is a thing. So
yeah,
it's weird that he keeps becoming the guy of, hey, I know how to time travel. Hey, there's this guy coming we need to all worry about. Like, it's weird that we're relying on Ant-Man to save the day.
Agreed. Which I kind of like, because I like Paul Rudd and I like Ant-Man not being the butt of the joke, but it is kind of weird how this is fleshing out. So I'll be interested to see how the MCU tackles the next couple years, especially with everything that's boiling, which again just makes me sad, because I do like Jonathan Majors in this role. And when we did get back to, and again, this could have felt repetitive and everything when they went back to the finale of season 1, but by the time we got there, all the things that led up to that. So this whole season is about the because Sylvie killed Kang at the end, the TVA was just fucking bursting at the seams, and then all these branches that they weren't pruning anymore was overloading the spool or whatever that was making it into the tight timeline, and it blew up everything. And Loki is desperately trying to get the team back together and to get a variant of Kang to fix the spool or whatever, to get it operational. And you go so much of the season is about that, and then it gets to the point where they just don't have enough time, and no matter how quick Loki gets there, it keeps on failing. So he commits to centuries of learning all of the mechanics and the science and the theory behind it in order to do it himself. He sacrifices centuries of time to do this, and then it still doesn't work. And at that point, a lesser show, I could have been like, fuck this show. Like, if it's not gonna matter, I don't care. But I was exhausted with the main character, and then it brings you back to Kang and him just trying to stop Sylvie, and then Kang no longer being this guy that you're like, is he really as out of touch as he seems? But he's been watching Loki this whole time. And then you're like, who has the upper hand? Is it Loki who's been learning things? Is it Kang? And their whole back and forth in that scene. Oh my gosh. I was on the edge of my seat. I loved that. It was great. It was a great finale.
It was so well written, because there's so much that happens off screen that we don't see. Because you could have done, like, if he's doing centuries of work to learn that stuff, you could have done like an episode of him having misadventure, like a whole season of him doing that.
Yeah.
But instead, it's like title card. Like, we're gonna steal from the Frasier show and just do a title card and end up here. It was so well crafted and well performed too. Like, the way Tom Hiddleston like presents himself, like the way he does, like, this is 14 years of Loki at this point for him. The way he just is so frazzled, but also like direct, but still flustered. Like the way he takes control in that room, looking at the loom, like it's such a great performance.
Yeah. I kept on saying spool. Yeah, you're right. Loom. Mm-hmm. I didn't mean to cut you off. The way he was looking at it.
Yeah, the way he was looking at everything and like figuring it all out, and the look of like when it doesn't work again, just the look of defeat. So much eyebrow acting in this from Tom Hiddleston. But such a satisfying ending for the character of Loki.
Yeah, his performance was spectacular. He sold the exhaustion and the devastation. Not just the annoyance, but the devastation. And then when he was face to face with Kang, that, you know, after trying to stop Sylvie again and again and again and not wanting to kill her, and then just saying to Kang, like, you know, like, are you just gonna let this happen? You know, and then they start talking, and you're like, man, Kang's got the upper hand. And then the devastated Loki, like, turns the tables again. It was like, actually, this isn't the first time we're having this conversation. Do you really think, you know, I'm as helpless as I seem? And his, you know, he shifts the tone again. I'm like, yes, that's the mischievous, you know, crafty Loki, the intelligence of Loki. And like they were a match for each other by the end, where they really weren't in the first season. And then you really did wonder, like, Kang was just spelling it out for him. Like, you know, no matter what you do, you lose, you know, and that's just how it is. And you need to accept whatever shitty ending you get. And he kind of presented some options, and I really didn't know where Loki was going to go. It kind of seemed like he was going to kill Sylvie at the end. And I was thinking, as much as I like Sylvie, she's just another variant, and I mean they're all variants, but we have Loki proper that we've grown up with in the MCU, and she's this nice variant, but I guess that's the direction we're gonna go, and he's gonna have to kill her. They definitely toned down the romance in
They
this. Like
did.
there was a and I don't know if that was critical feedback from the first, where people were like, that's kind of like this weird like twinsy thing. But there was a romance in the first season, and in this one, it was more just like kindred hearts. But I still felt like he didn't want to kill her, and then he went in this other direction, which I liked.
I wonder if part of that happens because of her killing He Who Remains, and then starting like right before the start of season 2. Like maybe that made the heart shaped eyes disappear a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a reason for it to disappear, like story wise, but it doesn't. It wasn't missed by me that much. Like there's still like that connection there, but it doesn't need to be romantic.
Yeah. No, I didn't miss it at all. At no point was I was like, oh, they should just kiss. In fact, when they did kiss in the first season, I was like, I think that was a little
I
forced,
forgot
maybe.
they kissed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So,
yeah.
but then let's talk about his choice. Let's talk about Loki's choice.
Yeah. So Loki at the end of this decide like they do a lot. They do flashbacks in the recap all the way back to the first Thor film where he's like, it'll be my throne, like showing the evolution of the character from Thor to where we get him now, where he doesn't want a throne, and then he is burdened with the purpose of sitting on a throne and creating the multiverse, like refining the multiverse to the point where all these timelines can interact, like exist at once, and making the tree of life that is built around the Marvel universe that all
And the
these
TVA,
all these branches come off of.
right. And the TVA is no longer about pruning anomalies, but I guess just maintaining the tree. Like all their symbolism is no longer the prunes going into the loom and then coming out as a straight line. It was the tree imagery at the end. So yeah, actually when it zoomed out and you saw the tree in whatever universe, space, whatever it was, I was actually expecting to see the Watcher there for a second, because it kind of felt like it was tying that in from What If. But yeah, I liked that the TVA still had a purpose at the end, and they didn't necessarily all lose their memory about it either. Like at this point, they were choosing to uphold it.
Yeah,
which we did get a little thing of. We did see that Kang had done his little Order 66 type thing and wiped all their memories to work in the TVA. I liked seeing that a little bit, and then now seeing the new version of the TVA being there to maintain things and with purpose, and not just mindless, drones with no memory of who they were or no sense of freedom, I guess.
Yeah. The one thing that I wondered about the finale was what happens to Victor Timely that they brought into the TVA. Like what happens to him? Because they don't address that, which makes me wonder if there was more with him that got cut.
Did they bring him in though? Because didn't they show him? They showed him as a kid, but
they showed him as
nobody dropped off the book. Nobody dropped off the book, so that Timely wouldn't become the Timely of the season.
Okay.
That's what I thought they were doing in that scene where he looked at the window, but no book came through the window.
Okay. I guess that makes sense. And then
I'm not sure what Renslayer, where she was or what she was seeing.
Yeah, it looked like she was at the end, either in the future or at the end of time where everything got sent again.
Yeah. but then something big and purple happens
Yeah.
in front of her.
Which
Do you have any idea of what that was?
I'm gonna guess it was the Kang variants, because we had the I think the biggest clue for that is the pyramid in the background. Like we do have that Egyptian
that's true.
Kang variant, so I'm sure she'll come into play in Kang Dynasty somehow. I'm sure we're going to see more of the TVA down the line.
Because Kang's not dead now, right? They unkilled him in this finale, didn't they?
The He Who Remains?
Yeah. Because didn't they unkill him?
No, I think everything that happened in season 1 still happens the way it did.
Oh wait, that's right. That's right. Because he gave him the choice to kill Sylvie, and you think that's going to be what he does when he goes and has that last conversation, but instead he goes to their experiment failing and him going out there to do his thing. That's right. Yeah. So he is dead. All the things in season 1 did happen. Yes, that's correct.
And all the things in season 2 happened. It's very confusing.
That's true. So that doesn't really make sense with Timely, unless Loki, unless that was one of the things he changed, and then he changed where Renslayer went. That did kind of feel a little like, well, that's weird. But other than that, it just felt like he took things and now he is maintaining them going forward. Yeah.
The sequence of him grabbing the timelines and giving them life and then making them into his cloak, and oh man, so well done, so well executed. I think this has some of the best visual effects and cinematography that we've seen in a Marvel project in years. Along with some of the best music.
Stairs to the throne. Yeah, with that music, like you just said, that music building up.
Yeah. Do you think we'll see Mobius again?
I wouldn't be surprised if we see none of these people ever again because of how it ends. I mean, ever since they brought Loki back, you're like, but why? And is it just because somebody realized they messed up by killing him and now it's just gonna be this other version of Loki? I wouldn't be surprised if we never see him again, because now he is burdened with glorious purpose. And he's not this individual anymore, and he's the god that looks over time. So I wouldn't be surprised if we never see Loki again, as bittersweet as that is. And I wouldn't be surprised if we never saw these characters again, because they have no other ties. If anybody could have tied them into the greater universe, it would have been during that Ant-Man movie, and we didn't get that. So
yeah, I feel like we'll see a little bit of everyone in Secret Wars for some reason. Like I feel like we'll see. There are rumors that the TVA plays a part in Deadpool 3, which given the ending of Deadpool 2 would make a lot of sense.
Sure, but with this version of it, because they're not still pruning people. Like, I could see a previous version of them, chasing him through the multiverse and saying, stop it, you're fucking up the timeline. But are they still pruning timelines now?
I don't know
what their purpose is.
I think their purpose is to look out for multiversal threats. And I feel like Deadpool jumping through time to share and saving his girlfriend and killing Ryan Reynolds and killing baby Hitler. Like, there's a whole bunch of things that he's doing in that one timeline to cause multiple branches that might need to be taken care of. So
that does make sense, because they were tracking the variants of Kang at the end. Yeah. So I could see them worrying more about threats and not just anomalies. I do. Yeah, I like that. That could be a thing. Mm-hmm.
So maybe we'll see the TVA again in Deadpool 3 next summer, which is still on track for next summer. Maybe.
In that could be a fun cameo for him. I really liked what they did with Mobius in the finale. I can't remember if this was the scene. This was the scene in the finale. Yes, when Loki goes all the way back to his first interview scene with Mobius, and he just asks him, how do you choose who to kill? And Mobius goes from this kind of lighthearted, naive guy to yeah, it fucking sucks, man. Like, it's not I'm not happy here. This isn't a happy job. And the reason I'm doing this is because he couldn't cut it as a hunter. And his story was great. The delivery was great. That whole scene was great. I really loved that scene. And then, Loki trying to say, don't you wonder, like, who you were, And he's like, no, like, I think this was a different scene. Yeah, this was a different scene when they were enjoying the key lime pie. And
Yeah.
it was like, don't you wonder? Because the other guy had gotten under his skin. And he was like, what if it was bad and this will make you happy in the job? And Owen Wilson was like, yeah, but what if it was good? Like, what if it was great and now I'm here? I mean, it was depth to his character that I really appreciated, that made the finale of him kind of watching a version of himself with two boys from afar. God, I loved that. I loved that pullback shot of him just standing there on the street. I thought that was so great with the music. It was so great. So he's a very rich character that if we don't see him again, I'd be fine with. If he does pop again, I'd be fine with. So either way.
From the sound of it, since the actor strike has closed, it has ended, and Tom Hiddleston's able to go on talk shows again to promote stuff. He was on the Tonight Show this week with Jimmy Fallon and talked about how season 2 is it's not only the season of season 2, it's not the finale of season 2. It's also the finale of seasons 1 and 2.
Yes.
And it's this finale of 14 years of his life. So I think this is him retiring as Loki.
Okay. With the caveat of, we've heard rumors that, the originals might be coming back sometime in the future in some way. Everybody back from Robert Downey Jr. to Chris Evans, and as much as they retired those characters, until they die in real life, I would never say never. So I'm not saying we'd never see Loki again, but it makes sense at where they left the character. Everybody thinks he's dead already, unless somebody had this. It would have to be something like what we saw with the Red Skull. Like, one of our characters gets so out of the element that they run into somebody as big as what Loki is now. But it would be some type of crazy, out-of-mind experience, not Loki's just walking down the street and like, hey, yeah, I do this now. It doesn't seem like that's the type of Loki he's going to be like, yeah, I can have a conversation with you at a coffee shop, but yet still run time. Like, he's on his throne. This is his glorious purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we'll see him again in like What If or something down the line, but yeah,
I just never thought I'd be this satisfied with the direction of his character, because I missed evil Loki, and I appreciated what they did with him leading up to his death, but at times I was like, man, I miss evil Loki. How are you going to take one of the better acted, better developed villains and turn him into this? And I would have never said that I would have been happy with him being basically an architect keeping the Marvel Universe together. But they sold it.
The God of Stories.
Yeah, whatever.
So, I believe that's what
they give him.
I believe that's what they give him in the comics, is the God of Stories. So I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Anything else from Loki season 2 you want to talk about before we wrap this up?
No, I just think the money was there. We just had a long conversation about the Marvels, and I think a lot of that had to do with money and effects. I think this looked so good. I think Benson and Moorhead as a directing duo, I just hope they keep getting projects. They've done some wild stuff that's some people can't connect to in their movies. They've done some more mainstream movies, and they're coming into more mainstream projects through the Marvels, but they are talented as hell. And I think, just they did the last 3 episodes of this season, but the last 2 and specifically looked so clean. And they just looked great. and I'm glad, and for all the technical, because this had another version of the snap with people disintegrating, and instead they went into little kind of like spools of yarn or what, spaghettis, yeah, and it always looked clean, and so whoever fought to make sure they had the right amount of money and the right amount of time to work on this show, they deserve a standing ovation as much as every other creative person on this team, because it looked great.
Yeah.
And somebody had to strong arm the funds and the time to make it look that great. And seeing how Marvel has struggled with that over the last half decade, that's an impressive feat. It's very impressive how good this show looks in comparison not only to the other shows, but to the other movies we've seen lately. It stands out.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back and I looked at that Variety article, and I'm kind of sad that Loki is included on the graphics for that, because they kept out certain things from the graphics of that show or of that article. And I think that's what they were trying to say, like, well, if it's not in the graphics, we think they're still riding high. And I think Loki might have, I don't know. I honestly don't know the reception of this. If people have been seeing this, if this has got record views or whatnot, but I feel like it's kind of fallen off the. People aren't talking about it.
I feel like I'm seeing a lot of.
But it deserves attention.
I'm seeing a lot of love for the finale, at least on TikTok. Like every other video is like people appreciating the finale. I'm seeing it on Reddit. So social media, like people are loving it. I don't know what the number is going to be. We're recording this over the weekend, so the season just ended. I think this is the first weekend ever where we've had two Marvel projects both come out at once for us to review. So,
well, now that the SAG strike's over, maybe they can do some retroactive promotions for it and get some numbers after the fact. Like, I'm sure that hurt them not being able to promote this film, but
I guarantee it
deserves attention.
You're going to see so many people promoting things that are coming out on video and DVD and Blu-ray. Like everything's hurting this year, and I don't think all of it's because of the strikes, but I think that's a big part of it. But I think this show, especially since it has the Blu-ray release of season 1 now, I think the fact that they're putting it out on physical media is a sign that they know what they have here. And yeah, I
would have loved to see some of this in the cinema. I know, I don't know if, I can't remember if Marvel's done any of that before, where they had a couple episodes in the cinema. Didn't they do that with one show recently? Or maybe not.
No, it was just Ahsoka that did it.
Ahsoka did it. That's right.
Yeah.
Ahsoka did it, and then Picard did it. That's Paramount. But now that I think about it, this Benson and Moorhead episodes were the last 3, but they still were very connected to the first 3. So it's not like it was a movie that you could have watched on your own. It would have felt oddly disconnected.
Yeah.
But it would have looked great on the big screen. Like, I mean, I watched it on my brand new 4K giant TV, and it looked glorious. So I would have loved to see it on the big screen. And
you gave your TV glorious purpose.
That's right.
So.
That's right. And this is refreshing. I'm glad we talked about this second, because I think, we both had fun with the Marvels, but we had a lot of critiques of it.
Oh yeah.
I can't give Loki enough praise. And thank you. Because you were like, hey, do you want to talk about this today as well? And I told you, I'm like, I haven't finished it, and I haven't really felt like I rushed to see it. But then I'm like, if you give me a couple hours, I'll watch the last 3 today, and I'm so happy I did. Highlight of my day.
That's the problem. Well, besides podcasting with me, of course.
Yes, absolutely.
That I'm kind of envious that you got to binge it, because I had to wait week to week to week for those last 3 episodes.
I'm sure that would have been hard.
Which is kind of
other people do it.
Which is what I like about the Disney Plus stuff, is it's not bingeable right away. Like, I'm curious what Echo's going to be like when it is bingeable, because I will watch that in one night if I can.
Did they announce that it will be?
Yeah, Echo will be all released at once.
Oh wow! I wonder why.
There were a few The main rumor was when they announced it was they have no faith in this, so they're not going to drag it out. They're just going to put it all out there. Having watched the trailer for Echo, I don't see that from the trailer. I think it's because they're changing the way they're presenting some of these shows, and this is more of a character spotlight where you don't need to know the canon of the previous Marvel properties, which is odd because I'm like, why does Wilson Fisk have an eye patch? Like what happened there? Like, I don't need to know. Okay, let's just not address it.
Well, you do know.
I do know, but if I didn't, like, it'd be weird.
Sure. Sure.
But I think it's because it's like more character driven story that they want it all out at once. And I think because of the strikes and everything getting shifted, they kind of like for them to meet their release schedules. If they were to drag it out for 6 weeks, it probably messed some other stuff up. So to get Wrecking Crew or Skeleton Crew and all the other Disney Plus shows that they have coming up, because next year we've got that Skeleton Crew Star Wars show, we have X-Men 97, we have What If Season 2.
Do we though? All of those are in jeopardy right now.
Are they?
From what I've heard. Yeah. I heard What If is not vibing and it's been delayed. X-Men is also delayed for some reason or another. So I don't know about any of those. But Echo, I have to give my friend Dustin props, and he called me out on it last night. I hung out with some friends last night, and I asked anybody if they'd seen the Echo trailer, and he was like, "Yeah, remember when you were talking shit about that 6 months ago and thought that show was gonna suck? Now what do you think?" And I totally ate my words, because even so 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, that Variety article came out, and everybody on social was just talking about, yeah, it's clear Marvel's struggling. Their next show was going to be Echo. I mean, come on. And then the Echo trailer drops and everybody ate crow. They were like, holy shit, this actually looks good. And it didn't even need the gimmick. But then for shits and giggles, they also said, oh, by the way, it's going to be our first mature rated property.
Yeah.
And if you had doubts, although there's still some talk about them redoing Daredevil, and maybe that's because they realized, shit, we can't do a PG-13 or a PG Daredevil. If Echo is being received this well, maybe we should go back. And also that Variety article talked about them trying to do a PG-13 version of Blade that was around his daughter or his granddaughter, and how nobody wants that. So they've walked that back, and now they're saying, nope, Blade will be R. So yeah. I'm not saying R at mature is the answer or the saving grace of Marvel, but at least they're thinking, well, maybe we do need to re-examine some of these things and rethink this. And I think that's a good thing. And
I think they're going to be leaning into it hard next year with Deadpool, because could Deadpool 3 be PG-13? Probably.
No, Kevin Feige is guaranteed it'll be R.
Is it? Well, yeah. I think there will be a PG-13 version of it.
Sure.
Because they've experimented with that already with Once Upon a Deadpool. So I think we're going to get two versions of that movie.
That's true. But I don't even need it to be Deadpool R, because I always felt like Deadpool R is R more for the jokes and the crassness than necessarily the violence. But when you look at that Echo trailer, it's because of the violence. They show a bloody fist of Fisk, and it's on the contrast of his white suit. I was like, when I saw that, and it was red, not black, because a lot of trailers just blacken it enough to get away with it, and it was red in the trailer, I was like, oh, that's a message.
Oh yeah,
that they're trying to send me. This is going to be a little more mature from the get-go.
Just give me all the Vincent D'Onofrio, Wilson Fisk that we can get. Like,
yes,
I'm just waiting for the day where it's him and Kelsey Grammer is Beast. Like, just the perfect castings coming together and be like, hey, they did good, right? Look at us. Like, don't we look great? Like, these are the perfect castings. I'm still rewatching the third season of Daredevil with my wife, and then we're going to get through Hawkeye just in time for Echo to come out. So,
you're not going to watch She-Hulk again before Echo?
Oh, I might. I like She-Hulk.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Or maybe just the Daredevil episode of
Yeah,
She-Hulk.
probably.
No.
But that's all I've got on Loki season 2.
Yeah, of all of the stuff we've been talking about and of the it's crazy how we're ending this so hopeful. Like,
Yeah.
part of me feels a little naive, but between this and the Echo trailer, I got some hopes. And South Park gave them some shit. Variety maybe brought some of their shadows out into the light that they didn't want the general public knowing. But, I mean, look how far they've come before this. I mean, they're 30 plus films in. They're multi-TV series in. For them to finally be getting some public backlash at this level, that's still an achievement.
Yeah.
DC couldn't get 2 films into their universe before they got, blown up. So if this is what it takes for Marvel to be like, hey, we've made it 30 plus films and TV shows, maybe we just need to hone it in a little bit. That's still a crazy achievement. And if they bring things back on track, man, it's still going to be incredible what they're doing. So I'm hopeful. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. It looks like next year we only have one Marvel film.
Really?
And that's
insane.
Deadpool 3. Which gives them time to flesh out Captain America Brave New World, which I think completed principal photography before the strikes. Thunderbolts and Blade, and then whatever's going on with Fantastic Four.
I heard Thunderbolts might be in jeopardy as a project in general.
We'll see.
That's what Grace Randolph we're talking about.
Yeah. We will see what happens, but...
that's insane. If that's true, and we only get one Marvel film next year...
But then we have 3 shows. We have Echo, Ironheart, and the Agatha Darkhold Diaries.
You really think Ironheart's coming out?
I mean, they filmed it. So...
What was Rhodey's show?
That got changed into a movie. Armor Wars.
Armor Wars, yeah.
And then maybe Daredevil next year too. So we'll see what happens with that.
Well, Daredevil still has a long way to go. Apparently, they weren't that. According to that article, they were not happy with the first half of the season, so they brought in a whole different crew for the second half.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if that's delayed. But if we only get one Marvel theater release next year, and that just means that they're going hard. Sorry, is that not the case?
Well, it's one Marvel MCU property that Kevin Feige's involved in. I just remembered there are 2 other Marvel properties coming out next year.
Oh, there's Kraven.
From Sony. Yeah, Kraven, Madam Web, and
that's right.
and possibly Venom 3. So it might be the year.
Not Venom 3. I know they filmed Madam Web. I didn't even hear about them filming Venom 3.
Let me see. It's expected November 8th, 2024.
Yeah, but how Blade was expected to release last week. So how old is that timeline?
That's what I'm looking. I know it's been in the list of things that have been...
Can you believe that? Blade was expected to release last week.
I mean, originally when they announced it, yeah, I believe that.
Yeah. That's crazy how far we've come from that announcement. I can only imagine how defeated Ali must be feeling.
Venom 3 is on the list with Deadpool 3, Beetlejuice 2 to start production immediately following the strike. So they're probably in the next week or 2 getting back into production for that. And Sony, like, with those Venom movies, like, they turned 2 around fairly fast.
They did.
So,
I mean, it's November, so that's still crazy fast for me, but maybe. Yeah. Maybe they'll see next year as a year to fill in the gaps with everybody else.
Plus, with something like Venom, like, there's probably some stuff that they were doing CG-wise that they just need the actors for principal photography to do. Like, you can build a lot of those graphics, the special effects, and go. Like, I feel like a lot of these movies have still been in production, but just without the actors. Like, you have all your CG artists working on it. So I feel like the strike might benefit those movies for that end. Like, it gave them time to focus on the look and the style of things, because the DGA was not on strike. So you still have the directors working. Like James Gunn was still...
Well, they were, but it was over really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So
I did see a fan poster for Venom 3 that had Andrew Garfield on the front of it. That would be a reason why I'd see that, not because I thought Venom 2 was worth seeing a third film of that franchise.
I think the villain of it's going to be played by Juno Temple, Keeley herself. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
I know we got to wrap this up. I've been slowly playing. I've been moving over the last couple weeks, so I've been slowly playing Spider-Man 2.
Okay.
And I'm about 30% into it, and it is crazy how interesting Kraven is in that show, or in that game. I say it's a show because there's a lot of production around it.
Yeah.
How interesting he is in the game versus how mediocre he looks in that movie, and it's coming from the same people. So now it's going to be a commentary on, Sony movies. You maybe bring on some of the writing creative team of Sony games, because they're killing it with those Spider-Man games, killing it. So we'll see. I have no faith in Kraven.
No,
no faith.
As you shouldn't. All right. Well, I think that does it for Brilliant But Lazy. Make sure to follow Victims and Villains wherever you get your podcast, on Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, for Brilliant But Lazy, I'm Alan.
And I'm Josh.
And in the words of Dr. Fraser Crane, wishing you good mental health.